Hello, and welcome to Radiance Revealed, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, fitness enthusiast, nutrition expert, and global explorer that over the years has uncovered that your skin is a true representation of your internal health. Each week, we will chat with leading health, wellness, and even spiritual experts who will reveal secrets to true health and vitality. My goal is to help you change small habits to give you the power to create a more balanced, aligned, and elevated version of yourself. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Radiance Revealed podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. And this week on the episode, I have my favorite intuitive consultant, Bianca Jade. She's from Bianca Jade Consulting, and she has been my personal intuitive consultant and so many other titles, if we need to give a title to you, but you've been my guide for many, many years. And I am so grateful to have you here to share your recommendations and your insight with everybody listening. So welcome to the show, Bianca.
Hi, Jen, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So it's the beginning of 2024, and we know every moment, every day is new. But many people look at the beginning of a year as a time to set goals. So I know I was first introduced to vision boarding with you. And before we even talk about vision boards, I want to talk about how does someone even begin to set goals, right? What's the process of even deciding what type of goals you want to set? So often we feel like maybe life has taken over us and we haven't become the conscious creator of life that we want to become. So where do we start if we're feeling like we're stuck in a rut or lost or in limbo? How do we start deciding where we want to push our future?
Just keeping things really simple and acknowledging, what categories are in your life. So if you're making a pie chart and you have self, you have relationships, you have home, you have career, finances, health, diet, exercise, whatever's important to you, that's how you're going to start making those goals. So you're going to break it down into categories and then decide which area of your life you want to focus on.
What are some of the categories that you often see with people you work with?
So big categories are often career, relationships, finances, home life, self-work, personal development, their emotional connection to their self, their mental connection to their self, their spiritual connection. So those are the big players.
Right. I think so often when we're doing these things, we're focusing externally. We don't think about what you just mentioned about ourselves and how to take care of ourselves and what we can do for ourselves. Do you find that that's often overlooked?
Yes, almost with every client that I see, it's very overlooked. They're always on the outside looking for validation and approval rather than really focusing. If you're good and your cup's full, you're going to be a lot better at fulfilling the other categories in your life.
So how does someone get started on that? If they're because I did live in that should world. I call it the should world. I lived there for so many years because I feel as though having this like wounded maiden archetype where you're living in this world where you're just trying to fit a certain model of how you're supposed to be. And it's almost like you have to like rediscover yourself through this type of work to check in and say like, okay, how can I best show up authentically? Because I often feel like if you're doing things for people or doing things that are not aligned with you, you end up resenting everyone around you for those things that you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That comes with boundaries. Whenever you're feeling that resentment, that means that you've over participated somewhere in somebody else's life and that you're not filling that first circle, which is yourself.
Yeah. It goes back to the airplane model, the oxygen on yourself before you could help others.
Yeah. And it is really it is that simplistic. It is how to get there. You asked how to get there is in reflection. And most people aren't taking the time, 5-10 minutes a day to sit down, take a couple of breaths, get centered, and actually review their life. They're just on, like a mode where they're not even acknowledging themselves.
So specifically, give an example of how one would do that.
So basically, just get your journal. Please have a journal because it's an awesome tool. I know we're talking about vision boards, but journals are an awesome tool as well. And maybe light a candle. Again, take a couple deep breaths. Maybe get a cup of tea, something that makes you feel relaxed, and start to outline what's going on in your life. It's just a brainstorm. So you're writing down if you have something going on with your home life, with your kids, start writing those feelings down, start to look at what that looks like, and then what a reasonable action step would be for you to take so that you feel that you're more grounded and in charge of where you are in your life rather than letting just things happen to you, because then you're going to become a victim of your life.
Okay. So in that process, in the vision board creative process, because I never heard of vision boards until I think it was 4 years ago. I did a vision board workshop with you, and I found it to be a really powerful tool to, help me be this conscious creator, this manifester that I wanted to be, to take charge of my life, right? And there's so much information out there on vision boards. How do we know where to start? How do we organize? How can someone, what, just from start to finish in a granular way, like how does someone start doing a vision board for 2024? And even though we're into 2024, it's not too late to start to do it, correct?
Well, vision boarding is supposed to be fun. So, really connecting with your inner child and knowing that it's going to be a playful state that you're in once you get going. It's an inspo board, really, for your year, or it can also be a single focus. If you're not wanting to look at every category of your life, maybe you've done a lot of this work and you're really wanting to narrow something down around financial abundance. Maybe you want to make some investments. So maybe you do an investment board and you have a single focus. But it's fun to do that because you're creating inspiration to align your energy with what you want to see in your future. And you may have a distance to go there. You might not be ready to do that. When I did my investment board, it took about 18 months for me to actually go to the financial planner, invest my money, and start that process, even though that money was already in my bank. It was just a gap that I had from where I was to where I wanted to be. And that was something that I had to work on myself to feel worthy of having those investments.
Mm. Okay, I want to get into that, the fears and limiting beliefs a little bit later, but how, like, can you just even explain what is a vision board and how do people get started? Like, do you do it
Okay.
online? Do you do uh
Sure.
magazines? Like
Yes.
how, like what are all the options? And do you have to do all the categories? Do you choose only one category? Like how do you even get started with it?
Yes. Okay. So finding a board, whether it's a canvas or it could be a piece of wood, it could be a chopping block. I mean, you could use whatever you wanted. You need some kind of surface that you like to put your vision on. That's number one. The rest of the supplies are magazines or clippings from newspapers or cards that have been inspirational to you throughout your life or year that you've collected. It could be the little tea sayings on like a yogi tea bag. You could keep those types of things, or saying from a Dove chocolate. I know in my office we have Dove chocolates and they all have sayings on the inside, and you could use those types of things to put on your vision board as well. Mod Podge is the medium that I use as far as glue to get those images down on your board. And then I use a foam brush, just one of those, wooden handled black foam brushes, like an inch by inch and a half or so, and then something to write with. That is that simple. Those are the supplies that you need to get going. Okay.
Okay.
Then beyond that, we're, creating a nice calming space. create a nice sacred space so that you can get grounded in and start to reflect on the past year. And the reason why you want to reflect on the past year is because that's going to lead you into your gratitudes. So as you're reflecting, you could use your phone or your calendar to go through and month by month start writing down. I always write all of my things on the back of my board. That way I don't lose the paper. I usually use a thin canvas and I flip it over and I write everything on the back so that it's all in one place and I'm not taping papers to my board. And I'll go back to the previous January and start to really look at all the abundance that I already have. Mm-hmm. So month by month, writing that down and acknowledging what I've already experienced so that I can be grateful. From that point, then you're going to write your gratitudes down. I'm grateful for this experience from last year. I'm grateful for this investment that I made, or I'm grateful for this trip that I took. Whatever happens to be your year. Okay. Then from there, I like to look at, this looks like the opposite, the disappointments in my year. Things that may have disappointed me or that I might not have been able to achieve, experiences that maybe were hurtful. And I start to ask myself, am I ready to let those go so that I can make room for my future year, the one that I'm stepping into, so that I can receive more. Because if I'm holding on to things, I don't have any room. So it's like counterintuitive to make a vision board to receive more when I'm not letting go of old things, that I need to offer forgiveness to.
Right. And those things, I mean, I feel as though they're lessons for us to continue to evolve. So even though it's hard at times, if I reflect on them and think of the gift in those moments, because there's always a gift, right? Even if the gift is, I'm not doing that again. Thank you for showing me what I don't want.
Yes, exactly.
That kind of helps transmutate that disappointment into something that's energetically moving forward.
Right. And then essentially it becomes a gratitude, and that gratitude opens up more room for abundance.
Yes, I love that.
Really just kind of think of it. I like to use that visual of a pie chart, and whatever you've got in there is what's occupying your life. So if it's too congested, you don't have room to invite new things into your life, even if you make 20 vision boards. If you're resentful and angry about past situations, all of that resentment and anger is actually congesting the flow. So the reflection time and looking at what you are holding on to is really important in order to empty that space out so that you can align with the visions that you're putting onto that vision board.
That's such a huge key part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people carry a lot.
Yeah, we really do. And identifying with that and creating an identity from that is not something we want.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. That's really key for everyone that's listening. We've got to do that work.
Definitely. And there's no shortcuts. I mean, if you think you're shortcutting something, it's only going to pop up somewhere else.
It keeps coming. The lesson keeps coming.
Yeah, the lesson, and it doesn't get easier to achieve. The lessons actually get harder the more you try and put them off or shortcut your life. So I don't recommend doing that. Just be exactly where you are. Trust that that's where you're supposed to be. Acknowledge what you've been carrying, and then really ask yourself that heartfelt question if you're ready to let it go and to forgive that situation, or to forgive yourself for even being in that situation.
Any strategy for that? Just
grace, I think, is a strategy. Acknowledgement. I mean, the only strategy really is to take the time to do it. Most people don't want to take the time. They're filling their life with so many things that they won't give themselves even 5 minutes to even breathe and to acknowledge their breath. So this is really an invitation to get into a relationship with yourself. And that creates all kinds of wonderful things when you're in a relationship with yourself. You're you're knowing yourself. So then it makes all decisions easier when you're given those opportunities then to step into those visions. If you know yourself, you're going to step in with more authority and more confidence than if you don't know yourself. So the reflection time is absolutely vital. And then from there, after you get your disappointments out and you offer those letting that space to let go or forgive, you're creating your visions and your goals. And those categories come into play now because you're looking at each section of your life and saying, you know what, my home's good. I don't need to do anything there. Or I love my career, or my finances are really awesome, but maybe your friend zone isn't so good. So you want to put more energy into creating a better circle of friends or people in your life that align with you.
And we're talking about what's good for you, not what society says you should have.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. What's good for you? What makes you light up? And so a gauge to figure that out is when you are asking yourself questions and you're feeling inside of yourself what that question, what emotion is coming up. If it brings you joy and excitement, then you want to follow that thread. If it's starting to bring you anxiety and frustration, then you're out of accordance with your true alignment.
Right. Yeah. Because when I think about like groups of friends, like I don't like being in big groups of women. It doesn't work for me. I prefer intimate, small, deeper conversations with less people, not having 15 people all talking at the same time. So like having lots of parties with lots of, people would not be something that aligns for me, even
Mm-hmm.
though, many people may consider that lonelier. It's not lonely for me. So we're checking in with what works for us. Uh,
Exactly.
in the
Exactly. And on the opposite end, if somebody needs some of that, liveliness and party, maybe they would put a little party scene on their vision board to encourage or invite that energy into their life. Maybe they've become too complacent and they need to get out there a little bit to
Mhm.
meet people. So yeah, it's truly personal.
Okay, so the categories, what are the categories that you commonly see? So family, work, career,
Finance.
relationships, finance.
Finances and relationships are two of the big ones. Kids, too, are a big one. Health and diet, exercise, that's always a big one. Balancing that. Meditation is another category. Family, and again, self, which we had talked about earlier.
Okay.
I mean, even pets can be on there. If somebody's wanting to manifest or have a pet in their life in the next year, a pet could be on your vision board.
So how does it work when we have other people on our vision board? Because we can be the conscious creator of our own lives, but like if I have my children on there, I have us doing things together,
Mhm.
yet I don't feel as though I'm in charge of controlling their life. Do you know what I'm saying? So, like
Oh,
when
right,
you're putting
certainly.
children on there or romantic lovers or friends, like what are the do's and don'ts with the vision board that keeps you in alignment?
Well, and it's self-actualization. So it's more about what your action steps are going to be. You can't control anybody else. So if you're putting that image of spending time with your children on your vision board, that's you making the effort. You can't control their response, but you can invite them. If you say in the past year only wanted to spend time with them or only made time for them, once a month, but your goal is to have a weekly interaction with your children, then maybe you would put like family dinner or something like that on your board to encourage that energy. And it might not happen right away, but with the constant invitation, it may become more and more prevalent in your weekly schedule and your monthly schedule.
Yeah, because it's about you, this vision board. It's not like a
Yeah.
picture of your son going to Harvard or something like that,
No.
or your husband getting, a job in Dubai or something like that. So it's about you and then your relationship and how it translates to that person, but it's not about anyone else. correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're inviting the energies in to sort of complement what you're creating. So yeah, but if somebody doesn't want to participate, they don't want to participate, but then you may find that you draw energy to yourself that you're creating with others to spend time with them. So maybe it's not necessarily your children, but you notice that the invitation's out there and you're receiving more invitations to spend time with others.
That's the
Yeah.
energy you're putting out there.
Yeah, it's the frequency. So, because sometimes our children will, depending on what cycle of life they're in, are in college or they're getting married or they're having kids or they're starting their own careers and they don't have the same amount of space that we might have at that current time.
Hmm.
We have to
Yeah.
honor that.
Of course. I had this conversation with my son the other day because I felt like I was just annoying all the time to him. He's like, why do you even text me? I'm like, I text you because I want to communicate with you. So the other night I said to him, I said, I understand that at this point in your life, it's natural to want to separate from your parents. It's a very natural place to go. And I want you to understand that I'm here for you. I don't want you to feel abandoned, but I'm going to give you as much space as you need. As long as you're a responsible person and you can be irresponsible, I'll give you freedom as long as I'm here and I'm not abandoning you. And ever since we had this conversation, he wants to be around me more, because I think he was feeling a little smothered, when he was trying to connect. So we're just so energetic in how we do things, and I think people can feel that graspy energy, and it can be a deterrent versus an open, inviting energy.
Yes. And I love that word, invitation, where you are invited to, and I'm here when you're ready to join.
You are. Okay, so can we talk about finances a little bit? Because okay, so we have a vision board. Maybe we're stuck in a job we don't really love. I don't even want to use the word stuck because are we ever really stuck, we're currently in a job that we don't love, not making as much money as we would like. Like, what's reasonable to put on a vision board? Like, you can't put $1 billion and expect that to happen. So how do we strategically create a vision board, and how do we think of money maybe differently energetically to have the financial freedom, the financial abundance that we want? Because I think with money in particular, like people will often say that money is the most triggered thing for anyone to talk about in relationships. It's more difficult than sex and religion and everything else, as money can be a trigger for a lot of people. So I think a lot of that has to do with how we think about money. We don't think of it as an energy. And I know how you think of money as an energy and a currency of energy. So I'd really love for you to share that with everyone, because it flips a switch that automatically allows the flow of abundance once you understand this concept.
Right. I think to answer that particular question, to stay in alignment with the currency or flow is to always just be asking yourself, do I want this experience, rather than can I afford this experience? Because when you're asking yourself if you want the experience, now you're saying yes to something. And the affordability part gets a little bit murky. So when we're talking about what to put on your vision board in regards to finances, put a reasonable number on that would elevate you to the next level. So if it's, $200,000 and you want to see that on your board, put that there. And let's say you're making $150,000 now a year, you want to close that gap, right, of $50,000. So it's a reasonable jump, but it also is a reasonable place for you to increase your own energy to feel worthy of receiving that additional $50,000. Because you're right now, whoever's in that 150 zone is locked into that vibration. If they want to go to the 200 zone, they have to increase that vibration and feel that it's okay for them to receive that. So saying yes to yourself, yes, I am worthy of receiving that amount of money. I don't have to stay here. I can go there and it's not hurting anybody else because everybody else has their own cookie jar to work with, right? You're not taking cookies from somebody else. The universal cookie jar keeps refilling for each person, but they have to own their own worth within the journey.
So you said something interesting there. You said something along the lines of like what we believe we are worth. So how does that
Mhm.
come into play?
Well,
Do you
if
think
I
we're
own,
setting limits on ourselves? Is that what you're seeing with your
yes,
clients? We set limits on our ability for abundance, whether it's in love or relationships or money.
yes. I think the ego does that all the time to us.
What do we do about that?
We have to get beyond that. We have to get beyond those self limiting beliefs and get into the limitlessness, right? The bigness. And that comes into surrendering and inviting and asking. And a vision board is a tool that aligns with that practice. So as you're looking at it, you're looking at that $200,000 that's on your vision board, and you're like very uncomfortable at first. And you're like, oh, that feels very uncomfortable. I don't feel like I can just ask for that. It took me this long to even be okay with 150. And so at first it's going to feel weird, very, very strange.
Why?
It just does. It's like even being in a new relationship, getting comfortable with somebody. It's a little weird until you understand them and you understand the $200,000 marker too. So it's the same thing. Change is uncomfortable at first, typically for people. So, but the vision board, what it does is as you're looking at it over and over again, you're like, yeah, okay, that was really uncomfortable last month, but it's not quite as uncomfortable. How could I start to really step into that value? And then the next month, I'm really feeling like I am. I'm now. You're looking at other jobs, or you're looking at the ways to be promoted in your company or to elevate your own business. And then soon, before you know it, you're like, yeah, I'm totally worth $200,000. And the idea of 150 just totally leaves your mind.
So you need to give some time for that shift to happen, yet it's
Yes.
attainable.
Yes, nothing is, well, some things actually are very instantaneous that people put on their boards, and other things take, like I said, my
Yeah.
investment board took 18 months. And that was me leveling up to um maybe it was an old belief of I can't have my own investments. That would have been for my partner to have, but not me, or some kind
Mm.
of conditioning that I was trained with as a child. Well, I grew out of that after those 18 months. I'm like, no, I, as an independent person, need to check all of my own boxes. And so that gave me the momentum then to fulfill that piece on that particular vision board. And I believe that one was like 2018 or 17, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you say that, like that doesn't resonate for me at all because I grew up in a house where my mom did all the finances and she taught me all the finances. So, by me realizing that, I can also reflect and say, "Oh, why do I believe this?" Like, why do I believe this? Because I know not every woman and or man in my situation believes this and kind of question like where does this
Mhm.
come from? And then at that point, if I keep digging, and then why? And then why? And I make it like a playful, a curious experience,
Yes,
then I can get to the bottom of that limiting belief. And, it takes a while to adjust, but I think it's possible. And that's what we're here for, to grow, right? So this vision
exactly.
board is a process that can help us continuously evolve and grow into the abundant, amazing people we're supposed to be, right?
Exactly. And I love that it's individual. This work is so individual. Like my limiting belief that I had wasn't yours. And
Hmm.
I'm so grateful that it wasn't yours because I had to work myself out of that. But you have probably limiting or had limiting beliefs that weren't mine. And so
Totally.
that's why it's so personal and so individual. So just staying open to your personal process within it.
Okay, so you choose your categories. Is it is it better to choose one thing to focus on per year, or you can kind of emphasize one and have multiple categories you're working on.
Yes, absolutely. I have done boards that had so many things on there, and then I've done that one single focus board. What I'm recognizing now from doing this work, repetitively for 15 years, every single year, that I outgrow my boards pretty quick. So I do a board about every 6 months, and I usually create a focus word to go with that. I had laughter on my board a couple of years ago, and that was a really fun year to develop laughter again in my life. It just had dwindled, and calling laughter and in those experiences was super fun. But now it's locked in. I don't need to keep creating that because I'm already aligned with that frequency of joy and laughter and humor and being with people that understand mine and I understand theirs. And then there was one, I had a focus word on being spoiled. And that was so fun to experience. And I only really went with that one until I achieved it. And that was about 6 months because I didn't want to get it. I didn't want to taint myself, right? So I enjoyed that. And then that feeling was locked in. And spoiling isn't a bad word. It's just allowing yourself to receive to the degree that you want to experience life. And that was really my intention. And then that soon changed to strength. And I moved my focus board into more of a fitness invitation, which I've been working on. So it's so fun to create those focus words, to do one category, multiple categories, subcategories. There's always something in the foreground that people are really working on, and that may be the majority of the board. And then you'll notice other little things coming into play. When the vision board is being created and you get into pulling images from magazines, I like to remind people, my clients, that do it intuitively. Yes, you have all of this written down, and yes, you've taken the time to brainstorm and to reflect and write all of your gratitudes and do your forgiveness, but let it also be an intuitive process where you're not thinking about it. You're letting your higher self come in and start to say, oh, I like this butterfly. Oh, I like this room in this house, or I like this color. I'm going to do the whole background in this and then add everything on top of that and really layer my board. And you may not understand in that moment why you chose that butterfly, but 6 months down the road, that butterfly really might come up and start to unfold its symbology to why you chose it.
I love that you said that because I'll notice that. And this is one of the reasons why I love going through magazines as opposed to creating a vision board online because of that draw. I'll see something on a page that will attract me. Like you said, colors or symbols or shapes. And I want to put it on the board and I don't understand why, but it just feels good. It feels playful. It feels good. It feels fun, right? Which is the
Yeah.
reason we're doing this, which is what you said. So for those people that don't, I mean, magazines are getting harder and harder to find, you know? Like there's still some at the store, but I had a hard time finding some this year. What are your thoughts about doing one of the online vision boards, like
I
online?
honestly, if that works for you, I've never done one online, but if that is something you're called to do, then absolutely. I've done a vision board. My one birthday vision board was done with one magazine. I used one National Geographic, and that was it. And it was really Aboriginal and very cool. And I ended up going to Costa Rica that year for my birthday.
Hmm.
So, or you could go to Barnes and Nobles and you could look at the magazines and just choose a couple. You can easily do a vision board with just a couple of magazines or have a focus magazine. If you're working with finances, get a financial magazine and do the whole vision board with that particular magazine. So you don't have to have 100 magazines to do this. It could literally be one, it could be 3, 5, but keep it simple. And
Okay.
if you want a focus, go to where there's a lot of options for magazines and choose the categories that suit you at that moment.
So what I'm hearing is you don't have to do it at the beginning of the year. It can be every 6 months. It can be once a year.
Mhm.
As maybe do you call it outgrow it? Do you call it solidifying the message? Do you call it integration with yourself? How do you know when it's time to move on to your next vision board, as you explained, the different phases?
For me, I will have my vision board done and it feels like a settledness within me. And then maybe I start looking at it and I'm like, I'm excited to do another one. I'm ready to do another one. Or I've achieved the items that are on that vision board that I'd already done. That would be a really great indication to start again and create the next series.
So what if okay, I got the finances, what if you have like two of the things on your list and the third thing you haven't really accomplished? Do you wait or do you create another vision board that kind of hones in or focuses more on that in a different way? Is there a do or a don't to help make the vision board more effective in your life or not? Or do you sit with yourself and go over why things aren't flowing your way? Like what's the process involved in that?
So I think what I'm understanding is you're saying or asking if there's one lingering leftover thing, is it time to create another board or should I wait until everything's done?
Okay, let's come up with an example. Okay, so just say I create a vision board. Oh, I want to have a baby, I want to get married, and I want to make $200,000, right? And then 2 years, a year passes by, I'm married and I'm pregnant. But I'm still not working or I'm not getting the $200,000. So I'm kind of everything's moving in the direction of the two things, but the third thing isn't
Mm,
really moving
okay.
forward. Where do we go with that creative process?
Yeah. So I would then make the money part, if you have room and space with a newborn and a new husband or partner, um, to focus on that financial piece. So I would take that, kind of pick that from my old board, and then I would start my new board and have that more as the dominant feature rather than maybe the baby of the previous year or the marriage. Make sense? And then from
Yes.
there, learning to be a mom and learning how to cook, meals or to manage time or to create travel. Maybe those things are now adding on to the board that's new for that coming year.
Do you find that at that point, when you're intuitively counseling and consulting with people, with your clients, do you find that at that time, it's a good time to sit back and for them to reflect on maybe some of these limiting beliefs or fears that they have that are overriding their ability to flow in that area?
Yes, the new year is always a time where I'm doing a lot of rewrites and a lot of
I like that.
looking at beliefs with my clients, and that just helps them to clear the path for that new energy for that year. So, and that's a
Is
time, a little bit of a time consuming process because you have to really go in and look at all the categories of your life and see where you're holding negative or preconditioned ideas that are basically creating conflict with where you want to go. And then we create those new truths from the misunderstandings that they were taught and start to operate from those new truths. And again, it takes a little bit of time because people have been working out of those old beliefs or patterns for so long. It's like ingrained, but because of our brain is neuroplasticity, we can reroute our thinking patterns and to create those new experiences for ourselves, which is so exciting. So there's really no excuses other than you're just not taking the time to do it, um, and and making a new outline for yourself in your life.
But it's exciting and empowering because if you choose to do that, you can, right? The only limitation is what
Yes.
we believe.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's so great. Okay, so with the vision board, are there any do's and don'ts? Like I've heard different things. Like some people say, "Oh, put it in your bedroom so every morning you wake up and you look at it." And I've heard other people say, "Make it, believe it, put it away." What are the do's and don'ts of having a successful vision board?
Hmm. Well, definitely enjoy it. wherever it feels right for you, and everybody's energies of their homes are different. So if it doesn't suit to put it in the bedroom, put it in your office or your kitchen or wherever it feels good for you to vibrationally align with it. If it feels good for you to do it and then put it away, then do that. That to me is personal, right? I like to display mine. I typically don't display my past ones. I keep them, but I don't display them anymore. I really just keep the current one where I can see it often. I like looking at it, and I like to be reminded, because humans tend to forget what they're working on all the time. And they'll make these declarations. This is what I find in my work. They'll make these declarations and they'll say, why is this happening to me? And I said, well, didn't you make that declaration in session last month? And now you're asking why this is happening. If we don't have a shift, then you can't receive something new. So I think that it's really important to be able to take a look at that board and to see what you're declaring or what you're inviting into your life. Another do is an open mind. When you go into it, be intuitive with it and just let those images speak to you and pull them intuitively.
So images and words, though. Words
Oh,
are
yes.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. Images, words, symbols, colors. My most recent board is the whole background's the same, and then I'm layering up on that wallpaper that I did for the background. So, I get really creative with mine because I'm an artist at heart. So I really like to use it to layer and to create something that's really visually pleasing. And some people just like to cut out, block pictures and put them on. So it's like very, square, 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 square. And that's fine too. That's visually pleasing to them. So whatever feels good to you, do definitely take the time to brainstorm the categories. That way you have an intention going in, and that intention aligns with your intuition, and it creates more of a more powerful experience for that time that you're creating. Definitely have fun. That's important. Connect to your child's spirit and that inner child piece of you, and just let her or him play while you're creating the board. I have some don'ts as well. So would you like me to move into those?
I would, yeah. It sounds to me like do what your heart desires, make it fun. There's no real right way to do it. Like there's no formula like, oh, you have to put this in the center and this on the right, and you can only use pictures. Like really just make it fun, make it you, make it real.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. One thing that I do as a practitioner when I'm facilitating these events, and this is personal. It's just something that I give my guests that attend my event or workshop, is I always have them. I have these heart post-it notes, and I have them put that heart post-it note somewhere on their board, usually under all of the images. So that gets glued down first, and I'll have them write their focus word on that heart. And that's just a nice indication of or representation of honoring self first.
I completely forgot. I want to break apart my board to find out what that focus word was, because I forgot what the focus word was when I did it with you. I think it's on the back, because you also had a little worksheet, and I
Yeah.
think it was on the back. It's interesting though, because I really had never heard of a vision board. I've always been like, a very left brain, like to-do list type of person, and go through my checklist. This is a very different, more fun, creative experience. And I didn't look at it every day. I actually had it in my closet. And at the end of the year, everything happened. It was pretty amazing, because I intentionally, I didn't finish it during the workshop. It took me a few days, because that's kind of how my personality is. I can't really get things done in an hour. I need to let it sit and then solidify. But everything on the board happened.
That's
And
awesome. I love
it
that.
it
Yeah.
really was. Yeah, it was where I wouldn't want that vision board today,
No,
because
yeah, I
I'm in a
agree.
different place. So that's something really important for people to understand. Okay, let's talk about the don'ts for sure.
Okay. And just to your point, like the vision board's nice because it uses that practical or analytical mind with the creative mind. So you can make the list and have the check marks or not, or you're just kind of writing them down. with the creative aspect of the artistry. So it's nice to also be able to make the list too.
Hmm.
I love checking things off. It's super
I
fun.
know. It is
Yeah,
gratifying.
that is for me also, everyone no, but for sounds like for you and I, yes. So a few don'ts. Don't think the vision board is a magic wand. That is really important. Do not get attached to, oh, I made a vision board, so this is all going to happen. Now, in your case, it did happen, but not, you were ready for those things. In some other cases, someone may think they're ready for something, so they're really putting it down onto that vision board, but they're not energetically aligned with the action steps it's going to take in order to receive that fulfillment. So do not think that the vision board is a magic wand. There are steps that you have to take typically and most definitely to create, the life that you're living. So the
And
vision board is a tool.
yeah, and for those of you listening, Bianca was on the podcast previously talking about steps for manifesting your abundant life. And there's some steps in there. Like one of them is inspired action. Like you have to have action. You can't just put things on a board and not do anything and expect everything to come to you. So please go back to that episode. I'll have a link in the show notes to what episode number that was on on the steps to manifest, because I think you broke it down so clearly and beautifully.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that reminder. Don't force something to be on your board. Okay, some people they'll have all their images and they're ready to get them glued on, and they're like, I want this particular image to be on my board. And it doesn't fit, it doesn't look good, there's no room for it, it doesn't even feel right at the end. Even if you've chosen something at the beginning, doesn't mean that it has to go onto your board at that moment. Or maybe it's something that you put on the back of your board. That's okay too. You could paste something on the back of your board, but don't force something in a position that doesn't feel right.
Why would you put it on the back of your board?
Maybe it's something that you're not ready for yet, but you will be. So it's coming around the corner, so to speak. It's coming from the back to the front. And it's just extra space or extra room that maybe it doesn't look good or feel right on the front, but you put it on the back and you're like, oh, I love that. I
Like
love that
just
right there
put a
next
pin
to
in it
it.
for later.
Yeah, exactly. So don't
Okay.
force anything to be on your board.
Well, and it
And
might be
then,
forced. It might be forced, excuse me. It might be forced if you think you're supposed to have it because
mm,
other people want you to have it.
yeah,
So that's
it's
usually where
the,
I find myself in, when I'm in that position where I'm like, this doesn't really, it doesn't feel right. And there were things that I cut out this year and I'm like, this doesn't go. And it
yeah.
just
There's a great example, right? It just didn't you had it there, but then you, after reflecting and going through the creative process, you're like, no, no, not right now. And so definitely do not put something on your board that does not feel right.
I couldn't give you a logical reason. And this is where I want people to start checking in with themselves. This is the kind of work that Bianca does if we want to work with her, is like, you don't have to give a reason. It just doesn't feel right. That's your reason. It doesn't
That,
align. It doesn't feel right.
and
Period.
that's enough. That is enough. Oftentimes we discount our feelings and we just go with the, oh, we should do this, or I feel obligated to do that. But if you simply just take a breath, put your hand on your heart and ask that question, how does this feel to me? And be honest with that, your answer will be right there for you. Now it's whether or not you're going to be brave enough to honor the answer that you receive, right? That's a practice.
It's a
So,
practice. We could get
mhm,
there.
yeah, it's a practice. And then thirdly, don't get frustrated. If you have put in an hour or two and you're feeling like, oh, I'm hitting a little roadblock, I need to process. Like you said, you took a couple of days, walk away from it, come back tomorrow. Maybe that fresh insight will inspire something else that you hadn't thought about or wasn't coming through the day before. So just walk away and come back when you're feeling more aligned with your project.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. Okay, so biggest areas you see, did you say that they were financial and relationships often that people want to focus on?
I have seen a lot of, I work primarily with women, so I have seen a lot of women putting on that self-care piece. A lot of time. I see yoga, retreats, breath work, candles on their boards, like very sacred little areas that they're putting on there, which is inspiring them to take time for themselves so that they can know themselves better, so that they can live out of accordance to their truth rather than that societal way of you should be like this.
Mm,
So, yeah, if I'm answering completely honestly, it is that self piece that I have seen the most. That has been the trend.
that's nice. Are you seeing that with men too, or you just don't see that many men to really say? I think it's
I
important for both parties to
I
take care
agree
of
with you.
themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I agree. My practice is primarily women based, so I'm just answering from that perspective.
Yeah, it's lovely. So, okay, this is something I've thought about for a long time. And because I've been in a dermatologist for 20 years, and I'll have patients come in and they'll say, "Oh, you fixed me." And I've always kind of joked and said, "Nope, I just distracted you while your body healed itself," right? That would always be my comeback. But the more I've sat on this and the more I've thought about things with skin, for instance, let's bring up the acne, for instance. I had a pimple about 6 months ago. And I looked at my face and I go, I don't get pimples. I literally don't believe I get pimples. I go, maybe that's a skin cancer because I don't get pimples. The next morning it was gone, right? So I thought in my mind, I said, maybe the opposite is true. Maybe most of the people, most of my patients I'm seeing with acne, they truly believe acne is their identity. So, how do I help them realize that the acne is not part of their identity? And I think in the traditional Western world, a lot of that process is let's clear your skin medically. And now you start to believe that you have clear skin, and then you believe you have clear skin, and it continues the cycle, sort of like this abundance flow of manifestation through the process of the vision board. Like once the dominoes start, flipping, then everything starts flowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, okay, if you don't have the medical treatments, how do we start the process of like shifting that belief system of like, I am someone who has clear skin. I don't wake up in the morning and run to the mirror looking for my breakout. It's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm going to get a breakout. I know I will, and then you will. Do you understand what I'm saying
Yeah,
about
I mean,
people?
energy follows thoughts, and you're stepping into that metaphysical uh, anatomy right now, where you're kind of touching on that the thought that's creating the circumstance. Then, so with acne, I believe that has to do, with anger and little bursts of sometimes hate or anger that's coming out that you're not able to process or address. And so with that, then it would be, again, going back to reflection, because we have to know ourselves. And so without that time to reflect and ask your body, why am I seeing the symptom of acne on my face? What am I not processing? What am I not acknowledging? And so then you start the dialogue with what you're avoiding, of what you're angry about, of what that actually is. And then you can start to adjust that as well in your life so that you're not creating a physical symptom.
Mm.
And sometimes we simply need that help from, conventional medicine to get us going, to support us while we're also doing that metaphysical work and that body talk in order to create a relationship with ourselves.
I love that. And also knowing it's okay to be angry because
It is,
we're raised like don't you're not allowed, that's not very girl like that's not ladylike to be
yeah.
angry. Contain
And it's
yourself.
okay. It's okay to be angry and be with completely clear skin and not have a breakout. It's okay. Like it's a reasonable emotion. It gets unreasonable when you're, hurting others and or lashing out, and you're not doing it in a way that is productive. right? But
Yeah,
it's
like
okay.
I'll see women, they pick their own faces. So it's like they're taking the anger out on themselves by picking
Mhm.
the face.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be angry. Like just keep asking yourself questions. Like I find that, through the work I've done with you, like I keep asking myself, okay, then why? And why is that? And then what? And you just keep going through the process and learning about yourself and understanding. And yeah, everything's very, very energetic. And I mean, even with the vision boards, so if you think about acne, right, you get started on a skincare regimen and then you become clear and then you start believing you're someone with clear skin
Hmm.
and you have clear skin. I feel like this is the role of the vision board is that you start maybe making that $200,000 and then it rolls, it cascades into further things like, oh, there's even more for me and there's more for me, not
Hmm.
in a way that's positively reflecting the world, not in a way for greed, because there's enough for everyone, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And it's literally limitless. We can create whatever we allow ourselves to receive. Receiving is very important to understand. If we are really great at giving, but we're not good at receiving, it's going to be difficult to experience the visions or images that you're putting out there. So checking in and saying, oh, how good am I at receiving? Do I need to expand that for myself? I had a very lovely client, and she had the means to treat everyone. That was part of her wealth and she could do that, but she started to feel taken advantage of. And I said, you don't have to always treat everybody. You are allowed to also receive. So, because she was starting to feel uncomfortable, and I rightfully so. So she started practicing that. And she said, so and so offered to take care of lunch. And I said, yes. And I said, how did that feel? She said, it felt so good that I
Yeah.
wasn't, taking the bill every single time. And I said, great, well, keep practicing. It's not that you can't, you're not going to stop being generous. Of course, no, but like let yourself be treated as well.
I think that receiving is really important.
It's
It
very, very important. If you don't have room to receive, how are you going to?
because it's energy flow. You're blocking the flow of energy if you're not receiving.
Yeah, exactly. And you're taking away that other person's gift of giving.
Yeah. And we're not talking just monetary. Like for me, it's emotional because I grew up in a household where I couldn't in I didn't feel free to inconvenience my parents with my emotions or anything really, from being
Mhm.
ill to being sad. So I grew up believing that I didn't want to inconvenience people with anything that was less than positive, right? So I've had to learn by having really beautiful friends that it's actually selfish not to allow people to be there for you because people want to be there for you. And if you're not letting them be there for you emotionally, physically, financially, we're breaking the circle of energy
Of
flow.
course. I mean, what relationship doesn't have vulnerability and intimacy?
Hmm.
And so that those deep shares, if you're not letting yourself be vulnerable and you're not creating that intimacy within, whether it's friendship or partnership, kidship, whatever it is, it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't really feel connected. So it's when you finally start to do that that you get those really wonderful experiences and you feel very supported and fulfilled.
Right. I think that's what makes the universe go around too, because when I think about it, whether it's a cosmetic procedure or whether it's, you know, financial stuff or work stuff, we really want to just all be connected at the end of the day. We want to be more authentically and ultimately connected. So, I love that aspect of what you just brought up. I think it's really key. It's a key interplay in all of this. So as far as like helping someone create this abundant mindset, do you have like two or three tips you can just put out there to like simmer with people as our last thoughts?
To create the abundant mindset is all about perspective, right? Really looking at those beliefs, looking at how you operate in a daily life and saying, what if I thought this way? Asking yourself that question, well, what if I looked at it like this? Then what would happen?
Mm,
What if I said yes instead of no to that? then what would I receive? So it's very much based on perspective and what you allow yourself to think or to experience. Some of the strategies that you had asked me about were to like create a like list. What do you like? You know, who are you and what do you stand for? From the like list, move into the standard and like start to really circumnavigate yourself so that your perspective can expand, not based on the conditions of how you were raised, but how you want to live into your life. So now you're really opening up a new platform. And then also know that you're not alone, that the energy is supporting you. So to get into meditation, to journaling, and meditation is not a difficult situation. You know, set the timer for 3 to 5 minutes, get a day dump going, get all of those things that are weighing you down out on paper, and then move into more of that calm state where you're focusing and asking to receive information on whatever you're working on at that time.
Love that.
So, yeah, you're just not alone. And I think people start to feel like they're alone. And with all of this energy and all of this interconnectedness, how could we possibly really truly feel that way? You know, just tap in, start to connect.
I love that you said a like list because it seems simple, but it's actually so hard to do. If someone said, "What do you like?" my brain automatically goes to the things that I should be doing every day. Like, oh, I should go to the gym and I should read more and I should do this. But like when I think about what do I like? Oh, I like to dance, I like to rollerblade. Like the list is very different from what I think I like. So I love that a like list because if we were first graders, we could easily come up with a like list, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to go back to that fun, playful place. And I know this wasn't on our discussion, but you brought it up, and I think it's key to touch on the boundaries because we want to give, we want to receive, yet obviously we don't always want to do one and have people take advantage of us. So how do we how do we feel into that and know we're in the right place in that kind of a relationship that we want to have? And
Yeah,
how do
it's
we know
over
when it's done?
when you start to feel that frustration or anger or resentment for somebody else or in a situation, then you know that you've over participated and you just gauge it that way. So if you start to have those feelings, those feelings are not how you want to live. They're not in that neutral zone or into the joy zone, I like to say. So if you're starting to feel those lower vibrational emotions, then you know that you've over participated and that you're allowing others to cross your boundaries. But if you don't know yourself and haven't sort of reflected on what your boundaries actually are by knowing what you like and knowing what your standard is, you're going to have a really hard time with boundaries.
It's a matter of how you feel really at the end of the day on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. Taking an inventory of how you feel and then gauging it from there. And if you're having those resentful feelings, you know that your boundaries are being crossed and that you need to tighten that up or at least to acknowledge what your boundaries are. And then you have to be brave enough to say that. You have to say, that does not work for me, or that I'm not available at that time, but maybe circle back in a couple weeks and I can see what my schedule looks like at that time. You can always do everything with loving kindness. It doesn't have to be, I look at yelling for emergencies. If you're in a
Mhm.
911 situation, yes, it's okay to yell, but on a everyday basis, no, it's not. Stay calm, know yourself, and your answers will be easy. Your yeses and nos will come out very easily with loving kindness.
So grateful for you. Okay, any last any last thoughts on this before we close out?
No, I'm just so excited for any of your listeners to go ahead and give vision boarding a try and to see what happens for them. Be
Great.
curious.
Thank you. Thanks, Bianca. And you're working with people remotely now as well. I know you do
Yeah.
amazing energy work in person, but remotely you can work with Bianca as well. And just I will have it in the show notes, but go ahead and let people know how they can link up with you.
Okay. How they can? You want me to share that?
Yep, your
Oh, yeah.
website.
Oh, yeah, BiancaJadeConsulting.com. You can go on and check me out and book sessions there. I work with people all over the United States virtually, and then also in person in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yes. And if you're in Scottsdale, definitely do in person. We've done past life regressions, we've done this intuitive consulting work, and your energy work is amazing. So,
Oh,
in
thank
person
you.
is definitely the best way to go. But if you can't be here, and if you are going to be here, come here during the winter. Don't come here during the summer. You can still work with Bianca remotely. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm sure everybody got a lot out of it, and always grateful for you.
Yes, well, with love and support. Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
And thanks, Bianca. Bye.
If you're enjoying the Radiance Revealed podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, please give us a review, as that helps others to find this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, please visit my website, drjenhaley.com, or you can find me on Instagram at drjenhaley.
Hello, everyone. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility made for statements made by guests. Neither this podcast nor any of the information contained within it are a substitute for care by a qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner.